There was a reason why I was encouraged after the Bearcats season opener, even though they came up just short, and the rest of the first half proved why.
Our Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcast. We're also on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel and follow us too to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. I would like to thank them for being the official recruiting sponsor, college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. So I want to take you back to the first game of the season as I put my Twitter handle up there in case you might have forgotten what that was, which is okay. So the first game of the season, and today we're going to look at what made the first half so successful for Cincinnati. Right? The key turning points of the first half, and there were a lot. But I think the biggest turning point for me was halftime in Fayetteville, right? Cincinnati's down 14-0. And you're thinking all these things. Ben Bryant sucks. I want Evan Prater. This team's going to stink this year. How did this team make the college football playoff last year? Etc. And believe me, I thought some of those too. But you know what I also thought? Was, for as bad as the first half was, it could have been much worse. It could have been. So, Luke Fickell could have changed quarterbacks, right? Ben Bryant didn't have a great first half in Fayetteville. We know that. But instead, Ben Bryant comes out second half a completely different quarterback. He looked more confident. He was starting to sling the ball all over the field, whether it be to the outside, whether it be deep down the field. Sure, he had some overthrows, but he looked more confident. I saw a quarterback whose pocket presence looked good. The touchdown pass to Leonard Taylor that cut the lead down to 7 was an expert display of climbing the pocket and throwing a dart to the middle of the end zone to one of your most reliable targets. And I just keep thinking, if Luke Fickell had changed quarterbacks, where we would be today. Because you can say, or you could have said that you wanted Evan Prater to start. Or, start that game against Arkansas, come into the game in the second half, or you might still want him to start right now. But that's not going to happen. You want to know why it's not going to happen? And you want to know why it didn't happen in week 1? It's because that would have made this quarterback battle, it would have made things very, very tense. It would have made things complicated. It would have made things awkward. It would have made things just very unsettling for both quarterbacks. Because I hate to tell you, you were not going to throw Evan Prater to the Wolves against Arkansas, right? You're going to throw your most experienced quarterback back out there down 14-0. In a game that Arkansas had 14 points, 7 off a turnover, a short field, 7 off a missed field goal, a short field. Not as short of a field as their first possession, but still, they had good field position to start their final first half drive. So it's not like Ben Bryant was so awful in the first half that it was clear and obvious Evan Prater should be the starter. He just had a bad first half, right? That was his first start as a Bearcat. You're on the road in SEC country in a hostile environment. It's hot. You had turned the ball over. The kicking game had let you down a little bit with 2 missed field goals from Ryan Coe. It just, didn't start out the way you wanted it to. But just because of that doesn't mean Luke Fickell was going to bail to Evan Prater. And you can do that. I did that too. I was a little on the fence because that game could have gone to 45-7, something worse maybe. But instead, the Bearcats battled. They were in position to tie the game midway through the third quarter. They were in position to get a stop on Arkansas's final offensive drive. They had him at 3rd and 9. 3rd and 9. They were in position to win that game. And you go back and look at the box score from that game, the stats are pretty even. Both teams 8 of 16 on 3rd down. Both teams had both teams had turnovers. It was a very well-played game, a very competitive football game between two really good programs. That Cincinnati just came up short, and it's not because of Ben Bryant. And if you want to blame him for the loss, go right ahead, but he's not the reason why they lost the game. They lost the game because of self-inflicted wounds. 10 penalties, 2 missed field goals, and then the whatever possession that was inside the 5-yard line by Arkansas. Like, that game was right there for the taking. And Cincinnati just didn't win it, but not because of Ben Bryant. It's not because of him they didn't win that game. So the turning point, and I said this. Did I say this on the Turning Point episode from that week? I don't know if I did. But leaving Ben Bryant in the game at Arkansas gave him the opportunity to show his resiliency. And I don't think the season mainly would be as promising as it is still today if Luke Fickell had changed quarterbacks. Bryant's confidence would have been shaken. Who knows how good Evan Prater would be? I get it. Evan Prater's really good. He's really talented, I should say. I think he's really good, but we don't know that for sure. And you see what I just said there? We don't know for sure. That's where you have to keep your veteran quarterback in the game. Okay? Like, if the Baltimore Ravens, for example, had benched Lamar Jackson for Joe Flacco. Now, this is different because this is the young guy being kept in over the veteran. But in terms of the future of your team, franchise program, whatever, the Ravens kept their quarterback in. He almost brought them back from the dead and won them that game. But you look at the Bearcats case, you've set yourself up for a very successful second half because Bryant has been through already some adverse moments this season. There haven't been many since the Arkansas game, except for maybe being down 10 twice early to Miami. That's fine. But that was the big moment for Ben Bryant. And as far as I'm concerned, he played really well in the second half. He gave the Bearcats a chance. And that's why he was left in the game. And that's why the season still feels very promising today. His confidence is not shaken. It only improved after that game. Evan Prater is used when the game's a blowout, and we've seen he's very, very good. And what we've seen from Ben Bryant is him get better and better and better. He elevates the offense. His deep ball has improved. He's got a really good connection with receivers that he maybe didn't have in Fayetteville. The only thing that he needs to work on is running with the ball, and that's not something I'm concerned about until it absolutely becomes, something that impacts the game, which it hasn't. So a big turning point in the first half of the season, I believe, was coming out in Fayetteville in the second half after getting shut out in the first half. And keep that in mind, too. So your last 2 games as a program, on national TV, on ESPN, the college football playoff, and the season opener this year, you did not score a touchdown in the first half. And a matter of fact, you only scored 3 points. 3 points in the first half in your previous 2 games. To come out against Arkansas and score 24 points was confidence building for Ben Bryant and for this program. And ever since then, the season has felt really promising. Sure, the Bearcats fell out of the top 25 for a few weeks, but they were right back in it 1 month later after 4 really dominant wins. All right, coming up, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. And one play that set the tone for how opportunistic this defense is this season. We'll touch on it after a word from LinkedIn. As you see on your screen, you see these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because they help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a hiring manager. I don't have any experience hiring people, although I will say I did recruit when I was sports director of Bearcats Media, and I found some very, very good talent. Zach Free, Sean McMahon, Justin Cashman, Ashley Martin, Caitlin Zylanowski, all of them fantastic coworkers. But I didn't need LinkedIn for that. But you personally, if you're a hiring manager listening to this, you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. You got to use LinkedIn Jobs, because what you can do is add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. It's simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so the defense, obviously, for the Cincinnati Bearcats in the first half of the season was tremendous. I think it was even better than I expected. Like, I knew this defense was still going to be really good, but I look at the players they lost last year. Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant, Brian Cook, Joe DeBlanco, Curtis Brooks, Darian Beavers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. But what I've seen from the defense this year is I've seen it has a lot of depth. I see all three levels impacting the game. And there was one particular play that set the tone for this season. So early second half against Kennesaw State, kind of a slog of a game to watch in the first half, not going to lie. It's 21-3. And Cincinnati is on defense to start the second half. Now, Kennesaw State kind of held their own in the first half, so you're still a little on edge. It's only 21-3. But then Jabari Taylor picks up a fumble, runs it into the end zone for the touchdown. Cincinnati goes up 28-3. They ended up scoring 35 more points in that second half. And I think it was a turning point for the defense, because it went from being stingy and really good to being also opportunistic, because that was the first of what is now multiple defensive touchdowns this season, okay? The Bearcats can score on the defensive side of the ball. They had two against Kennesaw State. They had one against Indiana, one against Tulsa. So what they're looking to do is, and this is something they've always been, good at defensively, they're looking to take the ball away, and then they're looking to score with it. Last year's defense, for as good as it was, I believe only forced 19 turnovers in 14 games, which is still more than one per game. But that's not what's, made Bearcats defenses so great in years past. 2019, when Cincinnati ranked, I believe, only 50th or something in points allowed per game, they gave up a lot more points than you realize. Like, if you go through some of their games from 2019, which was a really fun year for the Bearcats, but a year where they never really reached that potential of where you thought they could be really good, right? They played, they gave up 42 to Ohio State, 23 to Houston, 43 to ECU, and then 34 and 29 to Memphis. Like, they gave up a lot of points, and they gave up a lot of yards. But what they did to combat those was take the ball away. I mean, they had 4 turnovers, 4 takeaways against UCF, 5 takeaways against Houston, and then I think 5 takeaways against Tulsa. So in a 3-game stretch, they had 14 turnovers. 14 turnovers. Several of them went for scores, right? So that is what the Bearcats are looking to do this year. And it's great to see players like Jayvon Hicks, who had a phenomenal 2019 season when he had 5 interceptions, right? Jayvon Hicks has already multiple interceptions, a pick 6, And you're really starting to see the impact he's making. Remember his very first start in 2019? Remember when the big storyline was James Wiggins went down with the ACL tear just days before the season opener? Everybody around the program is crushed, stunned, and there was that uneasy feeling. But then enter Jayvon Hicks. First or maybe second UCLA possession. Bruins are inside the 10-yard line. Jayvon Hicks fumble recovery. Late in the game, Jayvon Hicks interception. Now, you can say they were blatant drops and blatantly just errantly thrown balls by the UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has steadily improved since that game, by the way, over his last 4 seasons. You can say all those, but you still have to make the plays, and Jayvon Hicks did. And you saw that night, how impactful of a player he was going to be. Same too with Jabari Taylor this year. Like, it doesn't matter who it is on Cincinnati that is scoring the defensive touchdowns. It can be Taylor. It can be Hicks. It can be Dominique Perry. It can be Deshaun Pace. And Deshaun Pace last year had 4 interceptions. So far this year, he has 1. That's 5 interceptions so far this season, or in his career as a Cincinnati Bearcat. He's someone that's looking to take the ball away. And what's so great about this defense is Ivan is not someone that takes the ball away or forces turnovers. But who he is someone that just, makes all the plays, keeps opposing offenses at bay, and that opens the door for mistakes. And then other players like Hicks, Taylor, Perry, Phillips, Deshaun, but Ryan Threats had an interception against Indiana. Arquan Bush, hopefully he comes back soon. It opens the door for those guys to make plays. So I look at this defense, and this year I compare it to 2019 when they gave up over 360 yards. This year they've given up 60 fewer yards per game, and they forced turnovers. They forced 4 turnovers in Indiana last year. But that was 4 of 19 for the season. So they only had 15 turnovers in the other 13 games, right? This is a shutdown defense. It's opportunistic, and it's why this defense is so good and so dynamic. Now, another key turning point for the defense this year, sadly, was when Malik Vann was lost due to a torn pec. And it sucks for someone who works as hard as he does, right? Malik Vann works incredibly hard. He's worked incredibly hard for 5 years. And he comes back as a 5th-year senior, and then boom, his season's over 2 weeks in. Big loss for a veteran who's from Cincinnati, who has embraced the pillars that's this program. But what that's done is it's opened the door for lesser players. It's opened the doors for players who have broken out in larger roles, and they've stepped up in the absence of Malik Vann. Dominique Perry, Juwan Briggs, Jabari Taylor, Eric Phillips, Dante Corleone. All those guys have stepped up massively in the absence of Malik Vann. Juwan Briggs is having a breakout season because he now has the opportunity to be that man in the middle that generates pressure. Jabari Taylor is the same way. What Briggs and Taylor are doing on the interior, wreaking havoc in the run game, looking to rip the ball away, getting to opposing quarterbacks, and making opposing offensive lines look ridiculous, that's what's enabled the Bearcats to really, when you watch them play, you have to remind yourself that Malik Vann is not there. But still a big turning point. Because you always wonder, would they have been better if Malik Vann hadn't gone down, or would they not be because, would we see the breakout of Briggs and Taylor? Who knows? We don't know. But what we do know is this is still a really good defense. That since the Arkansas game, the most number of points they've given up is 24. Okay? They haven't allowed an opponent to score over 24 points in the game since Arkansas. Last year, Cincinnati gave up 30 or more points, or let's just call it 24. They gave up 24 or more points, I think, only twice. This defense is about to, maybe match that. And that's without some alpha dogs. That's without Sauce Gardner taking away one half of the field. That's without Kobe Bryant being a lockdown corner on the other side of the field. That's without Brian Cook. That's without Curtis Brooks. These players who have been stalwarts on this defense for years, now it's given way to this new wave of players. Unfortunately, Malik Vann isn't one of those. But Jawan Briggs is that guy. Jabari Taylor is that guy. So many others are those guys. And it really, it could have derailed their season. I don't want to say derailed their season, but it was a big blow losing a guy like Malik Vann. But instead, it galvanized them. And for a program that's been really blessed with health over the last few seasons, when you have something like this come up, flare up, next man up. And that's exactly what Briggs and Taylor have done. All right, coming up, a connection that took off against Indiana and is showing no signs of slowing down. We will get into that after a word from betonline.net, your number one source for betting info this season. You can find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find, including the Bengals' upcoming game Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. I will be in New Orleans for that game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for your sport, all of your sport wagering information with live betting and up to the minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the Major League Baseball postseason division series action getting underway today, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so remember earlier in the offseason when I said Tyler Scott could be a receiver that Cincinnati hasn't had since essentially Mardy Gilyard? Well, it turns out that that's been the case because Tyler Scott is that guy. Tyler Scott is a receiver that you watch other programs like Alabama, LSU, Ohio State that they have. Cincinnati traditionally over the last 15 years has been driven through its running game and tight ends. And there have been many great running backs and tight ends to come out of this university. But now we're starting to see receivers make an impact. And by the way, Alec Pierce last Thursday night, monster game for the Indianapolis Colts in what was maybe the worst primetime game I've ever seen. Alec Pierce Thursday night, just kind of aside here, 8 catches, 81 yards. 8 catches, 81 yards. So far this season, 15 catches, 222 yards. Not bad for a second-round draft pick who, I think was further down experts' radars coming into last year. So really, really happy for Alec Pierce. And he's, maybe he started this wave of receivers coming through this program that can become NFL caliber. Like Tyler Scott, you watch him right now. That's a player who could fly in an NFL offense. Like, couldn't you see him with the Bengals? Couldn't you see him with the Ravens, unfortunately, for Bengals fans? Couldn't you see him with the Chiefs, Green Bay? Any other offense likes to sling it? The Chargers, the Bills, any team that, Buccaneers maybe. Any team that has, or maybe the Rams, any team that has an electric offense. So Tyler Scott, what I like from him is he's that middle of the field threat. He's a big play waiting to happen. He has elite speed, and it's great for Ben Bryant. And I think you're seeing that the connection that these two have has really allowed Cincinnati's offense to evolve and become more dynamic. I don't think it's different than it's been in years past. The Tulsa game was evidence of that. This team is still looking to run the football. We know that. But in a way, this offense is a little different because they can throw the ball down the field. Last year, Cincinnati could too, but it felt like it was so much effort put into it. Desmond Ridder was a good quarterback. Best quarterback for my money's worth in UC football history, at least that I've seen. Now, those of you who remember Greg Cook might argue him, and that's totally fine. But in terms of my generation, and probably your generation if you're listening to this generation's Bearcats' best quarterback is Desmond Ridder. Ridder could throw, but he wasn't the best deep ball thrower. I mean, there were many times early on in his first 2 seasons receivers would have to make adjustments to the ball. And that's why the Bearcats offense was so focused on attacking the middle of the field. That's why you had great tight end play from Josiah DeGuara, Josh Wiley, Leonard Taylor, etc. Ben Bryant's a little different, right? Ben Bryant has the ability to throw the ball down the field. And that's allowed the Bearcats offense to try some things that they haven't really tried before. Go back to the game against Indiana. It's 3-3 late first quarter. What does Ben Bryant do? 81-yard touchdown to Tyler Scott. Gorgeous throw, in stride, no one near Scott. Boom, Bearcats up 10-3, never trailed the rest of the game. And it was that play that showed how much this offense has evolved, right? No longer are they strictly, I say strictly because they, still might be. They are still a ground and pound offense. But no longer do they just have to rely on that to win games. What they can do is throw the ball down the field. They are dynamic offensively. And that has been proven, and that has proved massive dividends for this team. Massive dividends. Because it allows them to run the football still at a very high level, except for the Indiana game. It's allowed their offense to be more dynamic. And it stresses opposing defenses. Right? We've talked about the Bearcats' identity the last few seasons of being run the ball and defense. And while the defense still might be the best unit on this team, it is worth pointing out, and I've said this multiple times, again, thanks to Tyler Scott and his deep ball ability, his, deep route running and his speed that allows him to fly down the field, that is what gives this offense the ability to take the top off the opposing defense. It's something they really haven't been able to do in recent years. Last year they were able to, but that was also because they had a very strong running game, and Desmond Ridder helped out with that. This year it's a little different because they are able to do more things, which allows them to still keep their identity as a ground and pound team, right? Someone commented on our YouTube videos, one of our YouTube videos, Ben Bryant has a better arm, Desmond Ridder is a better athlete. Yes, Ben Bryant's arm fits this offense and what they want to do. That's why they went out and got transfers like Nick Bardner. That's why they have a deep receiving core of Trey Tucker, Tyler Scott, and Jaden Thompson. Ben Bryant's arm allows Scott to run far down the field. It stretches the defense, and it keeps the run game going. Like, when we talk about the UCF game in 2 weeks, UCF has not faced a Bearcats offense this dynamic. I guarantee you that. Even 2020, when Ridder threw for 330-plus yards in that game, leading the Bearcats back from, I believe, was it? It was an 11-point deficit early on. Did you see many deep throws that game? Because I didn't. Like, the Bearcats won that game because their defense tightened up big time when they needed to. And Desmond Ridder made some timely throws. And he also had 2 rushing touchdowns. So it was a systematic comeback. It wasn't just lightning, quick, whatever. It was much different. The team UCF faces this year is going to be a lot different than what they're used to defensively, because of Ben Bryant's arm and because of his connection with Tyler Scott. All right, that's going to do it for today. Tomorrow, we will grade the first half overall. We'll hand out some awards, and we'll look ahead to what I want to see from Cincinnati in the second half of the season. On Thursday, Russ Heltman will join me. We'll look back on the USF game from Saturday. We'll look ahead, we'll talk about the first half overall. We'll look ahead to the second half of the season. Then on Friday, Russ and I are back at it again. With the bye week, we're going to talk some hoops. We're going to do our All Bearcats men's basketball season preview. Maybe we'll have James Rapine on as well from our boss at All Bearcats, and of course from Locked On Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals Talk, and allbengals.com. So much to get to throughout the remainder of this week. Next Monday, we're going to have Jason Jordan our director of basketball recruiting for Sports Illustrated. And then on Tuesday, I'll do my basketball preview show. I'll tell you what I think their record's going to be. And we'll get back to football on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, leading up to the Bearcats matchup at SMU. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Alex Frank, your host each and every day. You can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_Natty with 2 N's, NNATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, or you can email me if you have a topic idea or something you want covered on the show at alex3frank@gmail.com. And while you're at it, thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. How about for your second listen, make it Locked On Big 12? Get more on the Big 12 by making it your second listen every day with everyday host Josh Neighbors and the local experts of Locked On as they take you across the conference in 30 minutes. Locked On Big 12, your second listen. That's Locked On Big 12. For Locked On Bearcats, my name is Alex Frank. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow with a first half review, awards, overall grades, and what I want to see from the Bearcats in the second half of the season. So stay safe, stay healthy, and keep making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. I'm Alex Frank, host of the Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.